Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Go to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, happy victory Monday. I want you guys to promise me, okay, as dedicated Chargers fans, to be extra obnoxious to any Broncos fans you may be running into this week. Ha-ha! Man, these guys are talking so much crap this week, man. So glad we grabbed this dub out in Denver, man. It's been 7 years since the Chargers have grabbed a win at Mile High. So excited to see Jim Harbaugh finally break that chain. He's going to be breaking a lot of things, man, for the Chargers in terms of horrible messes we've created for ourselves, curses, tendencies, choking, all that kind of stuff. Everything that kind of felt, like the Chargers of the past, it really did feel like it was broken in this game, including a fourth quarter choke, which could have been absolutely awful for the fan base this week. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to do things a little bit different in today's episode, though, man. We're going to go over to Bleacher Report. I had a show this morning, which was awesome. Had a lot of fun putting that one together. Went over some awesome points. Figured I would just throw it here into the post-game report as well, as there was a lot of good points made in that one. So before we do jump over to that broadcast, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you're new around here, definitely take advantage of the Josh Allen half-yard pick for Monday Night Football. Should be a lot of fun. Newcomers, that's a great way to support my channel. Have a lot of fun along the way. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. One amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history!
Well, Kyoto Bolt fam, it's the Director. Good morning and victory Monday to all Bolt fam across the world, across the universe, across the U.S. of A. Great day to be waking up a Chargers fan, man, after the Bolts take down the Broncos 23-16, which, if I'm being honest with you guys, it really does feel like that victory does more lean towards a 23-0, a 23-7 maybe. The Chargers had this game down pat for 3 quarters. Forcing a shutout for 3 quarters is no small feat. We're going to explain a little bit why maybe the 16 points snuck up on the Chargers at the very end there, but this is a great sign. If you are a Chargers fan that was a little bit nervous going into the bye week, we just lost to the Chiefs by a touchdown. We lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in a tough-fought game. Yes, we did win the previous 2 games, but what were they? The Carolina Panthers and the Vegas Raiders? This victory, I do think, does shift the Chargers into a new mindset for people, a new land of optimism for Chargers fans, and ultimately, it does look pretty good for the Chargers moving forward for the remainder of the 2024 season. Outside of a couple of pretty tough matchups, I'm not going to lie, this schedule looks awesome. And it's games like this and situations like this and narratives unfolding the way they unfolded just yesterday. It gives me a lot of hope that this team is for real this season. Sure, maybe they're not up to par. They're not going to be the version that Jim Harbaugh wants. It's going to be, maybe a bit farther away from a Harbaugh Super Bowl run. But they are off to a very, very good start in building this team for the future, finding a new identity, a new look of culture in the Jim Harbaugh era, and finding ways to win rather than forcing ways to lose. Raise your hand if you're a Chargers fan and you've been in a situation like the fourth quarter of this game before. Chargers up multiple scores, multiple possessions, right? We're looking at maybe a little bit of momentum coming out of the opposing side, right? You see the Broncos picking up a little bit of steam. How many times in the past does that result in a loss for the Chargers? I don't care if you're up 2-3 possessions. How many times in the past does that result in what we would consider a Chargers choking game? A lot of times. As a Chargers fan of 15, 16, I think you're going on 17 years, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this team throw it away in the fourth quarter. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I was feeling all that PTSD at the end of that game, man. Fourth quarter, here come the Broncos. They found a way to move the ball. Bo Nix somehow is running all over the place and finding success, and the Chargers are hobbling back to the sideline trying to find healthy players to put out on the field. It felt like that's where we were headed. But no, man, this is a new era. This is a new Chargers. I can almost say, I can't quite say yet, but we're on our way to the Chargers curse being broken. Again, nothing official right now. I wouldn't say even until the end of the season can we start declaring stuff like that. But as a Chargers fan, going in the right direction of not being the chokers and being the team that can figure it out and find a way to win, I'm very excited about that, man. A win is a win. A lot of people will poke at the fourth quarter saying, man, we got too much to figure out. There's a lot of circumstances revolving around that. But even great teams like the Chiefs sometimes have sloppy games, including the one versus us, mind you. The Chargers almost took that one home with a one-footed quarterback, no tackles, and two of our best players on defense not available for that game. The important thing is a good football team finds a way to win, and the Chargers did just that versus a division rival on the road in Mile High, which they have not won at in 7 seasons. So first off, hats off and bravo to the Chargers. You're going to see some complaining online a little bit. I've already kind of seen it, right? The fourth quarter left some people shook. Maybe some people wanted a shutout. I get it. But to start the stream off on Bleacher Report, man, I got to tell you, as Chargers fans, man, hold your head up high, be excited, puff that chest out, be extra obnoxious to any Broncos fans you see online this week because we've earned it, man. Tough game fought by them. Let's be honest, they are a sneaky team. They got a great defense, an up-and-coming Broncos quarterback in Bo Nix. But in this one, man, the Chargers find a way to win. And ultimately, once again, the AFC West, it's going to be a tough battle as long as the Chiefs are there, but the Chargers are starting to show up a little bit. Feel pretty good about that. Now, it's been a day since we've looked at this. I've had a little bit of an opportunity, not as much as I wanted to, but taking a look at the All-22 film, kind of isolating some things that I thought were very impressive in this game, and now with a little bit of space between me and the game, some of the biggest things that stood out to me from this matchup. First and foremost, and it's something I kind of lightly touched on in my reaction show yesterday, was Jim Harbaugh, man. Jim Harbaugh, for one, very, very grateful that he's okay. If you guys didn't know, there was some sort of heart arrhythmia issue or something like that. Gladly, he's fine. It sounds like he's going to get checked out. We didn't know why he was exiting the game, but it's not something I've seen very often as a Chargers fan, the coach going into the locker room. So fortunately, that what could have been serious situation seems to be all right. But more so, what he has done in terms of coaching and adjustment and finding a new tune coming out of the bye week is something I'm very grateful for. And again, I kind of lightly touched on it yesterday, but we have to really recognize this as Chargers fans as a change of culture, a change of what it feels like to go from a head coach like we've had in the past several years of Brandon Staley's and Anthony Lynn's and Mike McCoy's, right? Like, it really does feel like there's some experience here in finding adjustments through the bye week. Like, that bye week was so important. The timing was so important. We had players out left and right. We had to find ways to get healthy, but more so, really find what this team is. Chargers, freshly new, kind of out off the factory floor right now. We don't know what it is. The Chargers trying to become more of a run-heavy team. They have an awesome, high-flying passing quarterback in Justin Herbert. They found ways to kind of wedge that back into the game plan here, man. If the Chargers aren't 100% ready to go and built to be a run-heavy team, let's be what we are. And I think ultimately it's going to discover what we are for the foreseeable future. The Chargers, in my opinion, will be a run-balanced team. They have a more than capable quarterback in Justin Herbert, superstar in the league once you get him going, right? No reason not to let Justin Herbert go out there and sling it. And I have to believe that Jim Harbaugh was having some meetings with Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, during the bye week, and they found an agreement that, hey, Justin Herbert, he has a little bit of distance between him and the injury. Maybe he's rehabbed enough where we can start pushing him a little bit more. He's going to be the focal point of the Chargers offense this week. And it really feels like they came out the gates, all guns a-blazing, right, with that mindset. Justin Herbert coming out of this game looked awesome. As a matter of fact, even in the first, couple of plays, you could really tell that Justin Herbert was going to be, the star of the show once again, or at least be reinserted, right? It's been a few weeks. And we're going, it's week 6 The Chargers have been really not throwing a whole lot with Justin Herbert. Hadn't broken 200 yards this season yet, which is very abnormal for Chargers fans to see. Being able to watch Justin Herbert run out there, should say, and find a lot of success through the passing game, which ultimately led to his best passing game of the season so far. Gave the Chargers amazing opportunity to grab the lead, grab the momentum, take control of the game. And then again, at the very end of things, when you got a lead, you've got a good and functioning passing offense. It really helped out the run in many aspects throughout that game. So Justin Herbert being back, I think this is the biggest sign of optimism that I have going forward for the rest of the season, which is why I wanted to lightly touch on it once again in this episode. When you're looking at the remainder of the year, and you're looking at the Chargers as a legitimate playoff contender going forward, I think there's two, maybe three huge aspects that you got to keep at the front of your mind. The quarterback and coaching combo looks solid. These guys look like they're figuring it out. Justin Herbert's finally finding his comfort level again versus a division opponent is actually pretty huge, especially in an environment where I don't think he's won yet, right? Very, very exciting to see that finally starting to come to fruition. And again, a good quarterback and head coach can go a long way. You see it all over the league. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. There's no reason to think that Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert can't be that next step forward in that sort of combo, right? The next thing is the defense. I'm going to say this right now. We got some stuff to talk about in the defense, but Jesse Minter has been a savant. He's been amazing. He's looked incredible, especially considering the situation the defense was put in this week. Very, very, very impressive performance once again. Again, I almost consider this game more of like a 23-7, 23-0 performance with the first three and like half quarters. Things did start falling apart a little bit there at the end. But another incredible defensive performance there. And I'm going to say third right now, and this is going to be a huge point of emphasis for me today. It's something that when I stepped back and I was watching the All-22 and I was kind of redigesting what we saw yesterday, that offensive line, in particular, your tackles are something incredibly unique to the Chargers this season. All right, and you're going to see a lot of success from several different positions on the offense due to the Chargers' elite talent at both tackles this year. I saw several instances where J.K. Dobbins pops off a big play because of a wild block by Rashawn Slater on the left side, and very consistently getting some nice space with these athletic tackle and the athletic, I should say, skill set of a Joe Alt on the right side. Both of these guys, very powerful, right? It was kind of crazy watching Rashawn Slater, show off his strength to the Chargers after being drafted even before in the drafting process. And then Joe Alt as well. Very powerful dudes, but also extremely athletic. It's something that, again, you don't see throughout the league very commonly. Having one is special. Having two is insane. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to see the vision of a Jim Harbaugh in watching the replays and watching the impact that these guys had on this Denver defensive line, which low-key is pretty good. I think coming into this game, they were the third team in sacks, leading the league in sacks, the third team overall. Like, that's actually crazy. For the Chargers to go out there and do as well as they did, yeah, sure, they're not going to be perfect. There's going to be some sacks, yada, yada, yada. But the amount of space and amount of time, the amount of opportunity that they allowed this team to operate is going to be a huge part of this team's identity going forward. And it makes me, it's like that aha eureka moment. Why Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers coaching staff was so adamant about getting Joe Alt on this squad. It's not something you can really account for as an opposing, defensive coordinator. There's just not that many situations, that many examples of teams boasting that kind of talented offensive line. I'm telling you guys, you go back, watch some of the replays on YouTube or whatever, you're going to see some awesome space for J.K. Dobbins on each side. The Chargers ultimately, I think, rushed for like 120-something yards, which is very impressive on this Denver defensive line, which hasn't been the craziest, versus the run, but definitely not bad. They really went out there and impressed me in terms of their impact on the run game. And then you take a look at the passing game. It is pretty evident Justin Herbert's confidence, which you cannot blame him. You put anybody else in the situation, there's 100 different examples of how you can relate this to. You give this man both of his tackles, who at times were the number one and number two, graded tackles in football. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? You give him that kind of confidence, that kind of security, that kind of time, he's going to go out there and perform. And yes, it did feel like, let's say in the first 2 weeks, that Justin Herbert was shaking off some rust. Definitely that foot injury was coming into play there. But after he started becoming comfortable and having the kind of time that he did and the kind of blocking that he did, especially with his elite, pocket presence mixed into the formula there, he was able to step up, climb the pocket, and find extra time despite already having pretty good time with those tackles against, once again, a very good defensive line. Those tackles really shine for me, man. So if you're a Chargers fan, wondering, at least in my opinion right now, what the identity of this team is going forward, it's the quarterback, head coach combo, and Harbaugh and Herbert. That's a huge part of it. It's the rough and tough Jesse Minter defense. That's a huge part of it. And honestly, it's this offensive line. This offensive line is going to, again, continue to get better, but create very unique opportunities to the Chargers that you're not going to see very often throughout the league. Having that kind of talent is special. The only other kind of line I can even compare it to right now in terms of the tackle is maybe the Lions, right? You see a whole lot of opportunity for those guys via what the offensive line is able to do. The Chargers just look so impressive in that aspect, man. Moving into, again, another position that really benefited from that line, J.K. Dobbins, and yes, the new rookie sensation, Kamani Vidal. I'm not going to say go scoop up Kamani Vidal in fantasy football or anything, but I'm going to tell you right now, I bet you whatever, this dude is a big part of the plan going forward. First off, got to give J.K. Dobbins his accolades, man. This dude, again, knock on wood, I'm very superstitious. I really hope and pray to the football gods that they allow us a full season of J.K. Dobbins because he has been absolutely spectacular. The effort that he put forward this game, it was a bit risky, but extending to get that touchdown, the vision, the speed, the maneuverability, like he's looked absolutely awesome this season. A little bit of worry the last two games, I'm not going to lie, but hey, you are looking at two top 5 run defenses in Kansas City and Pittsburgh. The Chargers were without their starting 2 tackles. It was going to be a long shot for JK to have a big day in those days anyway. But when even against this Denver defense, when we got those tackles back and Justin Herbert was firing on all cylinders, which again is going to help the running attack, J.K. Dobbins looked absolutely fantastic. And this is your RB1 this season, man. He's going to be awesome. I remember saying at the top of the regular season, even in the offseason, especially in the offseason, that if J.K. Dobbins could stay healthy, you're looking at a top 10 running back in the league. And honestly, at this point, I don't think I'm wrong. I think right now, J.K. Dobbins, as long as he can stay on the field, as long as he's got, one or both of these offensive linemen that are very unique and special, as long as he's got, a rounded minded head coach in terms of how to run the football, J.K. Dobbins has all the opportunity in the world to be a top 10 running back in the league this season. He's been amazing. I scooped him up everywhere in fantasy football, even before he had his breakout game week 1. I had a lot of faith in him, and he's certainly not disappointing. J.K. Dobbins, hugely impressed by him. But this guy, Kamani Vidal, the rookie out of Troy, what he did was also spectacular. And I don't know if you guys saw it too, but like I had just like this vision, like I was thrown back into my seat and I was like, oh, okay, this is what we got for the season, man. I'm feeling good about this. No disrespect to Gus Edwards, who is a very unique archetype of running back. He's the big, rough and tough, 6 foot, 1 or 2, big, weighted guy. Like he's got a role that he wanted, that the Chargers wanted him to play, but you cannot do with Gus Edwards what you can do with Kamani Vidal. And Vidal feels very appropriate to what this offense is probably going to end up being. And it feels like the evolution, right? When you go into the bye week and you reevaluate and you say, hey, Herbert's the guy. We got to get him passing, get him going, get his groove back, find some time with the offensive lineman. When you're readjusting and finding, your rhythm, your tempo, I feel like Kamani Vidal kind of fits the bill a little bit better. Because Vidal, dude, he's a pretty decent pass blocker. He's a great receiver, as evident in this video. And he's not a bad runner either between the tackles. So, of course, you're going to see a lot of that, to the outside, especially with these tackles that we have on the offensive line right now. But Kamani Vidal, very, very impressive debut to his NFL career. His very first touch goes for a touchdown on a wheel route. By the way, beautiful ball. by Justin Herbert on that pass. You had to put it right on the money. Kamani Vidal absolutely took advantage of that. His first touch goes for a touchdown, and I have a feeling that Kamani Vidal is going to be a very big part of the plans going forward. He's a very good complement back to J.K. Dobbins. You give him a full workload. Don't know quite if he's ready for that yet, but he feels like a very, very good option to complement J.K. Dobbins for the season. Maybe when Gus Edwards comes back, we can, mix him in here a little bit there. But J.K. Dobbins feels like a really good RB1. Kamani Vidal feels like a really good complement back. And it feels like this version of the run game is more appropriate to what the Chargers are going to end up being by the end of the season. A run-balanced squad who are going to, yes, need some services from a receiving back like Kamani Vidal, who may end up being the best receiving back on the roster right now. Justin Herbert, who's very used to having a number 30 in Austin Eckler for the past several, in his entire career, right? Having a Kamani Vidal, I think is going to be pretty big for him. And I think Kamani Vidal is just getting started. Very excited for him. As this episode's getting a little bit long, we're going to skip the segment on the wide receivers. We kind of talked about it yesterday, guys. But again, very, very briefly, QJ and Ladd looked awesome, although very hobbled by injury. Gets me a little bit worried. We're not very deep at wide receiver. We got DJ Chark, who's already on IR. We got Darius Davis, who's more of a special teams guy. You got Brendan Rice, who hasn't been active yet. You got Jalen Reagor on the practice squad. The Chargers, in my opinion, need to make a move at wide receiver. I'm looking at guys like DeAndre Hopkins is a personal favorite of mine, but a very intelligent move would be Amari Cooper. There are options out there. I think the Chargers need to make a move, okay? So, with that being said, I also wanted to put into emphasis in terms of identity for the rest of the season. This rookie class may end up being one of the most rookie classes for the Chargers in a long time. We already talked about Kamani Vidal. I think he's going to be a big part of the formula for the Chargers going forward. I really do. I feel very confident in that, right? But then you take a look at some of the other guys that are contributing. Again, yeah, Joe Alt, we kind of already talked about as well. Ladd McConkey is going to be a big part of the formula going forward. I don't know if you can just say, hey, this is your Cooper Kupp wide receiver one, let's get going. I think you kind of can eventually, but I feel like Ladd McConkey is going to be most effective when you do give him a compliment. Kind of reminds me of the situation, at least what I want to see, with the Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. Brown is this big dude, like DK Metcalf looking guy, right? Big, physically. He's the archetype that you want in the NFL. But Devontae Smith is also an incredible talent that these two guys complement each other so well. We saw that happen this last week. Of course, they were both back from injury, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and they were awesome this week. I want that same kind of dynamic for the Chargers. Of course, you're not going to find a talent like A.J. Brown just floating around available for trade or in the free agency, but you can get something that kind of fits it if DJ Chark isn't coming back anytime soon. Again, I think DJ Chark is going to do awesome for the Chargers and help open up Ladd McConkey a little bit more when he does return. But again, moving in for a wide receiver to help Ladd McConkey out. It's not going to replace McConkey. I think McConkey is a great talent. Right now, the wide receiver one for the Chargers, but you want that pair. And I think that's something that could exist. He's going to be a big part of the offense going forward. Junior Colson, third-round pick. Big part of the defense. Him and Dayan Henley look awesome, man. Denzel Perriman's getting in there to complement versus the run, that big hitter or whatever. But Junior Colson's looking great out there, especially in coverage. Justin Boygby, we haven't seen quite much of him yet, but the Chargers do need some help in pass rushing from the interior. We may see a debut from him at some point, or at least a little bit more work. The big ones, though, I'm going to say, the Chargers corners. These guys may end up being the unsung heroes of the draft class for the Chargers. At least we'll say in the second half of the draft, right? The second half of the picks. Cam Hart and Tareeb Still are going to have themselves a tall order these next couple of weeks, man, because we don't know the situation quite yet. I don't know what's going to happen. But if you guys are paying attention, this is part of the reason why I was saying, hey, the 23-16 score may be a little bit of a facade. It should have been maybe closer to a shutout, if not actually a shutout. The Chargers have been losing corners left and right, man. If you guys didn't hear, the Chargers cornerback one, Asante Samuel Jr., he was placed on IR last week. That's a big deal, folks. Some people were like, he wasn't a great tackler anyway. Nah, this guy's awesome in coverage. He's your cornerback one. That's a huge loss. We also lost our slot corner in Jasir Taylor, who wasn't active this game. I'm not quite sure what the injury status is of all these guys, firmly, but he wasn't active this game. We don't know when he's coming back, and he's been an excellent slot corner for this team. Then you got Christian Fulton, who's been an awesome guy coming back, being resurrecting of his career in Los Angeles. He's been an awesome tackler for this team. He got injured in this game too. I don't know when he exited, but I was pretty sure, yeah, he was pretty obviously absent in the fourth quarter. That's not good. And then even your fourth string guy in Darius Leonard, I think I saw him out there at the top of the game, but I sure as heck didn't see him in the second half. That's crazy. That's your top 4 cornerbacks not on the field. And that's going to change how you play football, especially if it happens on the fly. The Chargers were rolling out with, of course, Cam Hart on the outside a lot. Tariq Still, who was amazing in this game, by the way. There's a huge pass he defended over the middle, deep in the middle of the field, which was awesome. But it's going to be different, man. That corner situation is going to be tough. And luckily, the Chargers, in my opinion, drafted a couple of pretty decent cornerbacks that I think can step up, buy you some time to get ASJ back, to get, Christian Fulton, Jasir Taylor, anybody, any combination of these guys back will certainly help the DBs, because I don't want to see a situation like Denver again. Because again, go back and watch it. I was watching the All-22 this morning. Like, as soon as the Chargers, were I don't remember which particular corner it was. It may have been Christian Fulton. As soon as they were short a good amount of corners, they had to play more conservatively. You couldn't spy as well. You couldn't stack the box as well. You had to play a certain way because you were so short-handed at DB. I think Tariq Still, Cam Hart going to be a big part of the formula going forward. We're going to need some help, and we may even need further help, from the practice squad or otherwise going forward. And then lastly, from the rookies, I will say Brendan Rice. I'm waiting for the day, man. I'm waiting for the day Brendan Rice gets the nod. He was one of my favorite players to watch at camp this year. I was at camp, got to see him in person, got to talk to him. Awesome guy. Very excited to see what his potential is once he is active for a game. I think he's going to be happening more often, or should I say sooner rather than later. Okay. And lastly, to kind of help the optimism of the chat here, we're going to go over to the screen real quick, show you guys exactly. And I did this yesterday too, because this is pretty exciting stuff. The Chargers are getting hot at the right time, man. Like we said, the Broncos, I did have us winning this game. I actually wasn't too far off in my score prediction either, but hey, it was almost a shutout, which is pretty awesome. But then you take a look at the rest of the schedule. Here comes the hype, dude. The Cardinals are a very beatable team, right? Again, nothing's guaranteed in this league, but I think the Chargers can take him. The Saints are on a rookie quarterback all of a sudden, Spencer Rattler. Yes, he could end up being awesome, but again, that's another very winnable game at home. That's a big part of that. Chargers, so far, it's getting a little bit tougher every year to play there. I'm a Chargers fan. I've been there several times. I will tell you, when you've got a good attendance by the Chargers fandom, which has slowly been growing over the past 3 seasons, it's not the easiest stadium to play at anymore. The Browns looking like they have imploded into themselves, right? Like what I say last night, like a neutron star. That is a very winnable game. The Titans, of course, are a very winnable game. The Bengals, we've beaten before with Joe Burrow. That could be a winnable game. You got a couple of tough matchups. Sure, the Ravens, the Chiefs, of course, the Buccaneers looking like a really good team this year. But outside of that, tell me which one of these games are impossible. I don't know, man. I said at the top of the season, if you don't think the Chargers are a double-digit win squad, get with the program. Not just because the Chargers, yes, are looking, exciting because of Jim Harbaugh and the roster's looking cool and yada, yada, yada. But I think, honestly, this is one of the best schedules we've seen in a long time. And I think the Chargers are going to be getting even better. Just like what we've seen, I'm going to be honest with the offensive line. Every week they've looked a little bit better when they're, all there, right? It takes some time for these new guys to gel in, whatever. As that continues to get better, I think the Chargers, as they begin to understand who they are, as Jim Harbaugh continues to build something more cohesive and recognizable in terms of identity, as they continue to take that final form, right? As soon as they get closer to saying, I think that the Chargers are only going to get better as the season goes on, and I think that's going to make them a pretty dangerous team by the end of the season, especially if they have a double-digit win record. I can definitely see them being playoff contenders. But again, we are week 6 into the season. I'm already starting to see signs of, okay, we're getting it. We understand what this team is. And as they understand that more and more, the more the Chargers are going to become a more dangerous threat. And you're still seeing opponents like Cardinals, Saints, Browns. It could be a fun season, man. It could definitely be a fun season. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a follow here on Bleacher Report. We'll catch you guys next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let's go, man. Watch some Joe Alt when you get some extra time on your hands, man. That was a fun replay to watch this morning.